Bucs win! Hey guys, welcome back. I'm Corey Draper, and I'm so excited to be doing one of these reaction videos off of a victory. It's been a while since we've been able to say Bucs win, and it feels good, guys, to be honest. Even though we're only 3-6, we can all take a deep breath now, right? It feels a little bit better. I know the offense wasn't all that great, but the defense looked really good. I know we were playing just the Jets, and the Jets aren't all that good. That's okay. We won. A win is a win is a win, so let's enjoy it, shall we? Real quick, I want to remind you to subscribe if you like these reaction videos. If you're a Bucs fan, I'll be doing these weekly. Also, I will be doing some non-Bucs NFL-related videos coming soon. As you may be able to see from my past videos where I'm in a studio, I'll be doing more of those soon. I just have not had the time. So sticking to these Bucs reaction videos. Also, I want to remind you to follow me on Twitter at The Player Reaction or at Corey the Draper. I'd be happy to talk with you about Bucs, football, or any life thing. This week we're going to talk about the offense and how they did, and the defense and how they did, and then I'll give you kind of my final thoughts and shout outs at the end of the video. So let's get started. Okay, we were without Jameis, and the offense honestly looked the same. Still couldn't score, still couldn't convert when the defense was really just on top of things and giving us many chances. And then once we finally got those chances, there were just tons of really drive-killing penalties, and it looked sloppy. There's no one way around it. However, this time we're with an excuse, right? We have our starting quarterback and our star wide receiver out for this game. So given the fact that we had Ryan Fitzpatrick as our quarterback, you know, hey, we still eventually scored and it looked okay. I think the most concerning thing watching this game is that the offensive line is just still all over the place. You have Ali Marpet, you have DeMar Dotson, and then you have everybody else. Like Ali and DeMar are still doing great, but then Donovan Smith, Kevin Pamphile, and Evan Smith, they're still switching out roles for some reason, and J.R. Sweezy, nobody really is stepping up who didn't before. Now I will say, I didn't notice Donovan giving up a whole lot of big plays, but that doesn't mean it didn't happen. I just didn't notice it. There was that one part where Doug Martin had a really big run, got us, in the red zone, and the holding penalty was called on Donovan Smith for holding, and it killed the drive. It ended in a field goal, and people were really trashing Donovan on Twitter for that, but that didn't look like a hold for me. That actually looked like an awesome play where Donovan just took the guy and threw him on the ground, and I guess he went kind of sideways, so it looked like a hold. It wasn't a penalty in my opinion, so we'll have to see the tape when that comes out. But largely, we couldn't get the run game going for most of the game, and it's still a problem. And I think that honestly might be the biggest problem of our offense, is that we just have not been able to get a consistent run game. However, what I will say is that thank you Dirk Cutter, we did not abandon the run game. Now maybe it was because we were finally ahead late in the fourth quarter, but we kept running the ball and suddenly started seeing Doug towards the end there finding some holes and running straight through and getting some good yardage. Now I'm not saying that the play calling is the reason Doug hasn't been able to get yardage, because he's been dancing too much. I really do think that the offensive line is the biggest problem. He doesn't have the holes he's used to having, and he's dancing too much behind the line, and he's getting caught. He's not shedding tackles, and I think that's evident when you see Charles Sims come in, when you see Jacquizz Rodgers come in, when you see Peyton Barber come in. They are not getting yards either, and I think just our offensive line is still very much underperforming. Now props to Ryan Fitzpatrick and hanging in there that whole game. He looked awful at some points. I mean, it was pretty brutal, but he got the job done when it needed to get done, and that's really what a backup quarterback is for. So props to Ryan Fitzpatrick for hanging in there, finally getting us that touchdown towards the end of the game, and it is what it is. We may have to lean on him for another week unless Dirk decides to try out Ryan Griffin. We'll see how it goes. We'll just have to see if our defense keeps stepping up. Speaking of which, okay, now for the stars of the game. The defense, finally, it's like the defense suddenly hit that turning point again, didn't it? They were all over the place. We got pressure on the quarterback, our linebackers were all over the place, our secondary was locking it down. Now, I know that we were playing Josh McCown. I know that it's not really a stellar offense from New York, but I will say the Buccaneers love to make backups, rookies, and former Buccaneers look like Hall of Fame QBs. I fully expected Josh McCown to come in here and pick apart our defense just like Case Keenum did, but he didn't. The defense from start to finish was spectacular, and credit to Mike Smith, who called a lot of different blitzes to get some pressure and stopped calling a lot of those stunts that you've been seeing on the defensive line. Suddenly the defense is settling in and they looked like they had an attitude. Now I noticed one of the announcers mentioned earlier in the game that Mike Smith had a team meeting with these players and he really challenged them to step up. I don't know what that's all about. I can't find that online anywhere. I had never heard it, but that's what I think Rich Gannon said, and I was kind of confused by that. If that's the case, well, that's great on Mike Smith. I mean, here we are a week ago saying, hey, Mike Smith has to go, that he's lost the locker room. If he challenged these players to step up and finally got them going like this, then, hey, maybe we're just a second half of the season defense. I don't really know. I mean, I'm not saying that Mike Smith now needs to have another extension or anything, but this defense looked like how we expected them to look at the beginning of the season, and that's worth celebrating, and that's worth giving them props for. Now, defensive MVP has to go to Lavonte David. He has been playing out of his mind this year. Lavonte David better be first team All-Pro or I'm gonna lose my mind. At the very least, he deserves to be a Pro Bowl starter, because Lavonte, honestly, if you guys aren't paying attention, don't just look at the stat sheet, actually look at the game film and watch him during the games. He is making incredible plays and he's just flying everywhere, playing as good as we've ever seen him. So Lavonte, thank you, Lavonte, for being a leader, stepping up and jumping out there and doing your thing. Also, I read on Twitter that Lavonte was the one that gave the pregame speech instead of Winston. Since Winston was out this week, Lavonte stepped in. Now, I know not a lot of us expected that because Lavonte is kind of a quiet guy. So I would love to see the footage of that and see what he said to the troops, because it got them going. And the other linebackers, Quan and Adarius Glanton and Kendall Beckwith, they were all over the place too. They looked fantastic this game, and it's been such a breath of fresh air. Our linebacking core is by far the best unit on the entire team. The defensive line got pressures again. Gerald McCoy showed up again. They looked great. Secondary, they looked great. Everybody looked good as far as I could tell without having seen the film. So, hey, maybe, just maybe, and I know it's a little too late, but just maybe this defense has clicked. Just maybe this defense will carry us to a respectable record by the end of the season and will give us a little bit of hope going into the offseason. Maybe. Which brings me to my final thoughts. Last week I sat here and asked us all to have patience. As dark and gloomy as things looked last week, as bad as the coaching was looking, I said, hey, let's have patience and see how this team finishes. I also said that I'm not in favor of firing a head coach after 2 years unless he's lost the locker room. Did you watch this team and see the heart that they had this game, especially on defense? That did not look to me like a team that has given up. That didn't look like to me that it was a team that has given up on their head coach. It doesn't look like a team to me that has given up on this season. So, kudos to Dirk Cutter and Mike Smith for getting his players to not quit. In the past, we've seen this team quit on Raheem Morris. We've seen this team quit on Greg Schiano. We've seen this team quit on Lovie Smith. We've even seen this team quit on John Gruden in his final year. However, the team got it together, won a tough game, and they deserve all the credit in the world for that. Now, does that mean that the season is suddenly not over and that everything is all rainbows and sunshine from here on out? Of course not. But this is an example of a game that gives us a little hope, and things don't look as so dark and gloomy as they did last week, which is why you have to give a coach a full season to play out, and that's all I'm asking from you guys. I can't wait to see the film on this thing, and there are a few people I follow who tell me all the things I need to know about the film and know how to read it a lot better than I do. These are guys who are a lot smarter than I am, know the game a lot better than I do, and I recommend you guys check them out. First of all is Pewter Report. Now, some people don't like Pewter Report, but at the very least, follow Trevor Sikkema at Tampa Bay Trey on Twitter and read his Cover 3 articles every week. He breaks down a few plays every week from the All-22 and really tells you why something's not working or why something is working. The next person is Stephen Che at Che Say on Twitter. Che is a guy who is a film junkie and will do a lot of long tweets throughout the week showing gifs of certain plays that he liked, that he didn't like, and plays that deserve a little bit of explanation from the week before. And these guys both, I love reading their stuff. They know a whole lot and really open your eyes as to what's going on the field. A couple podcasts you should listen to. What the Buck is a great podcast to listen to. It's the original Bucs podcast, been going for 12 years. Derek is a crazy passionate fan, but he's also logical and he doesn't doesn't let his emotions get the best of him. He has guests on every once in a while that know the team well, and he knows football really well. I definitely recommend it, and he posts one every week. He does a live show, and he posts it as a podcast. Check it out. I also like to listen to the Pewter Nation podcast, which is from Pewter Report as well. I like them because they post a reaction podcast immediately after, and they follow the team, and they're journalists, and they know about the tone in the locker room. They just have a deep knowledge of the team behind the curtain. Now I want to give a couple shout outs to some guys in the YouTube community who have reached out to me and are awesome people, and I think you should follow their stuff too. Check out my boy Real Talk Perez, RTP, and Mr. Bucs Nation. Those are two channels on YouTube I've discovered, and those guys have some deep, passionate thoughts about this team. Very entertaining. You should check them out. I'll link to their channels below. That wraps it up for me, guys. What were your encouraging thoughts on this game? What were your discouraging thoughts? I know I feel a little bit happier, so I've got some rose-colored glasses. The offense definitely still struggled. What are your thoughts on that? What are your thoughts on the defense finally stepping up? I want to hear about it. Let me know in the comments. Hit me up on social media, and I'd love to chat with you guys. Until next time, go Bucs.